All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to OneClass. My name is Kevin, and today I will be tutoring economics. A little bit of a background about me. I hold both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in economics, and I also work as an economist. Basically, what I'm going to do today is walk through, I think, 8 questions. I will review the answers by our junior tutor. I will add anything else I think is necessary and mark them as either right or wrong. So we get started here. Looks like it's working. And question 1 reads, what is the best way to prevent and reduce smoking? Briefly discuss. Please read the article below to have a general idea about the topic. Case study, deterring young smokers. As the U.S. Surgeon General warns on each pack of cigarettes, smoking can be hazardous to your health. Researchers estimate that smoking kills 440,000 Americans a year, 10 times fatalities from traffic accidents. Smoking is the overwhelming cause of lung cancer, which is the top cancer killer among women. 4 or 5 people with lung cancer die within 3 years. Smoking is also the leading cause of heart disease, emphysema, and stroke. Thus, smoking imposes major health and economic costs. Policymakers try to reduce these costs by discouraging smoking, especially amongst young people. About 1 in 4 U.S. high school students were smokers in 2005, the same rate as in 2003. Each day, about 3,000 U.S. teens under 18 become regular smokers. Worldwide, an estimated 100,000 teens become regular smokers each day. One way to reduce youth smoking is to prohibit the sale of cigarettes to minors. A second way is to raise the price through higher cigarette taxes. The amount by which a given price hike reduces teen smoking depends on the price elasticity of demand. This elasticity is higher for teens than it is for adults. Why are teenagers more sensitive to price changes than adults? One reason is likely due to the fact that they have a lower income. If the price of cigarettes were to double, they have less disposable income to put towards cigarettes. First, recall that one factor affecting elasticity is the importance of the item in the consumer's budget. Because teen income is relatively low, the share spent on cigarettes usually exceeds the share spent by adult smokers. Second, peer pressure shapes a young person's decision to smoke more than an adult's decision to continue smoking. If anything, adults face negative peer pressure for smoking. Thus, the effect of a higher price gets magnified among young smokers because that higher price also reduces smoking by peers. With fewer peers smoking, teens face less pressure to smoke. And third, young people not yet addicted to nicotine are more sensitive to price increases than are adult smokers, who are more likely to be already hooked. The experience from other countries supports the effectiveness of higher cigarette taxes in reducing teen smoking. For example, a large tax increase on cigarettes in Canada cut youth smoking by 2/3. Another way to reduce smoking is to change consumer tastes through health warnings on packages. In Canada, these warnings include photos showing how smoking can affect the brain, teeth, gums, and a wilted cigarette depicts male impotence. These taxes are usually called excise taxes. Excise taxes. I'm going to pull up the exact definition here, but it's basically a tax on something that has negative effects. And to discourage the consumption of that good. So it is an indirect tax. Indirect tax charged by the government on the sale of a particular good. I'll leave it there for now. Ad valorem excise taxes are percentage, yes, are fixed percentage rates assessed on particular goods, and specific taxes are fixed dollar amounts to apply to certain purchases. So if there was an extra 10% tax on top of a regular tax on cigarettes, that would be an ad valorem excise tax. I'm gonna write this, ad valorem. A percentage tax, and then a specific tax would be like if on every pack of cigarettes the government charged an additional $3 in tax. So specific tax is going to be some absolute amount. Where was I with this? In Australia, labels show gangrenous limbs, underweight babies, cancerous mouths, and blind eyes. Belgium adds corpses to the picture. Yikes. California, a combination of higher cigarette taxes and an ambitious awareness program contributed to a 5% decline in lung cancer among women, even as it rose 13% in the rest of the country. As of 2007, state taxes varied from a low of 7 cents per pack in South Carolina to a high of $2.58 in New Jersey. More generally, the message about the dangers of smoking, along with the higher cost of cigarettes, has had an effect over time. Only about 20% of American adults now smoke, down from more than half in the 1960s. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, each pack of cigarettes sold in the United States costs society $7.18 in higher healthcare costs and in lost worker productivity. The added cost exceeds $150 billion a year, which works out to be about $3,400 per smoker per year. What is the actual question here? What is the best way to prevent and reduce smoking? Briefly discuss. Off the top of my head, the two most common ways are going to be the excise tax as well as awareness programs, but we'll see what our junior tutor had to say. So our junior tutor had to say, as far as the best way to reduce smoking goes in adolescents, one of the main problems in most developing or developed nations is adolescent smoking. A proposal for eliminating such a problem has been banning or prohibiting smoking among teenagers. Prohibition is not a solution because there are always suppliers in the black market or in the underground economy who will supply illegally to these teenagers, and they will purchase and continue smoking even after the prohibition or legal ban. It is important to note that adolescent smoking has a relatively high price elasticity. In such a case, if prices are increased by imposing taxes, the decrease in demand will be high due to the relatively elastic demand. So if we remember with elasticity of demand in particular, it's the percent change in quantity demanded over the percent change. Here I use the symbol delta, the triangle, to denote change in price. And if it is elastic, that means the change is greater than 1. Therefore, if there's a price change, there will be an even greater change in the quantity demanded. So if price goes up, I don't know, by a bit, then the quantity demand is going to fall by quite a bit more. Our junior tutor said that it's also important to note that teens have relatively low incomes, so the share of cigarettes in total expenditure is large, and therefore the elasticity of cigarettes is higher. Again, this suggests that an increase in prices would reduce adolescent demand more than proportionally. Taxation on cigarettes has proved to be quite successful among adolescents in different parts of the world. But the problem with taxing is that it creates a deadweight loss to society. A much better approach would therefore be the introduction of awareness programs that would simply reduce cigarette demand and shift the demand curve to the left, reducing both the price and consumption of cigarettes. Deadweight loss to society would also be prevented. So if I just draw this out real quick, we're going to have Q on our x-axis for quantity, P on our y-axis for price. We've got supply, and we've got demand. And they're saying that these programs to educate adolescents about the effects of smoking will cause their demand for cigarettes to fall, Call that D prime. As a result, our demand curve is shifted to the left. And we've moved from this initial equilibrium here, which I'll call Q and P, down to this new equilibrium. And at this new equilibrium, P prime and Q prime, we see that the price is lower and the demand is also lower. Give you guys a quick second to take a picture of that. To move on to question 2. Question 2, for the next 3 questions, be sure to draw out the figure yourself on scratch paper. It will help you get the correct answers. So the equation for the demand curve is D equals 100 minus P. And the intercept on the price axis is 100. Quantity, price. So the demand curve starts at 100. Slope is going to be -1. So that means at a price of 100, the demand will be 0. And at a price of 0, the quantity demanded will be 100. So that means the intercept on the price axis is 100, and the intercept on the quantity axis is also 100, and so the slope of the demand curve is -1. The equation for the supply curve is S equals 9P. So that's going to start at the origin and slope it like that, I think. It means that the supply curve begins at the origin and increases with the slope of 9. For example, if the price is $1, the quantity supplied is 9. If the price is $20, the quantity supplied is 180. Draw these curves, you will notice that the intersection of supply and demand, so I should label this supply, demand. So the intersection of supply and demand occurs at a price of 10. And a quantity of 90. So equilibrium point right there. If you draw these curves, you will notice that the intersection of supply and demand occurs at a price of $10 and a quantity of 90. That is a market equilibrium. We will call it the autarkic equilibrium in this market. This question, what is the consumer surplus? There's no need to put a dollar sign in your answer, just write the number. So if we remember, total surplus is going to be defined by this area here. And our consumer surplus is going to be everything that is above the price line. So our consumer surplus is going to be everything in here. So we can calculate that. We can see here that this is a triangle, and the formula for a triangle is base times height over 2. So our base is going to be from the origin over to the equilibrium here. So our base is going to be 90. And we will multiply that by the rest of the triangle. So our height is going to be from this point 100 to this point 10. So 100 minus 10 is also going to be 90. And because it's a triangle, we have to divide it by 2. So our consumer surplus is going to be 8,100 over 2. consumer surplus. So I'm going to equal $4,050, assuming my math is correct. So you need to put a $sign in your answer, just write the number. So our junior tutor said the equation for the demand curve is D equals 100 minus P. That's correct. The equation for the supply curve is S equals 9P. Supply and demand are intersected at a price of $10 and quantity of 90, and that's the market equilibrium. Correct. Consumer surplus is the region, triangle, in the usual linear demand curve, defined between the price line and the demand curve. So what they're trying to say is this area I've highlighted blue here on the y-axis between 100 and 10, on the x-axis between 0 and 90, and then of course along the demand curve. And they get the same value for consumer surplus that I do. So I will let you guys take a quick picture of that, and I will say all right, we can move on to question 3. The U.S. Congress imposed restrictions on the number of Japanese vehicles that could enter the U.S. economy, effectively reducing the quantity of Japanese vehicles by 33%. Within 4 months, the price of an automobile, Within 4 months, the price of an automobile increased by roughly 14%. What is the own price elasticity of supply based on the information given below? Show your work. So it looks like our junior tutor has the right idea here. Let's say that the elasticity of supply is going to be the percentage change in quantity supplied divided by the percentage change in price. And what we saw was percentage change in supply was 33%. The percentage change in price was 14%. And 33% over 14% is going to equal 2.35%. Important to note, you always take the absolute value of elasticity. So this is technically negative 33%, but it's also absolute value. So we convert it to positive. We can say the own price elasticity of supply is 2.35%. If we remember correctly, when supply is over 1, that means, when the elasticity of supply is over 1, that means the quantity supplied will alter a lot when there's a change in price. And so we call it elastic. If it were equal to 1, we'd call it unit elastic, which would mean when the price changes, quantity supplied changes proportionately. And if it were less than 1, we would call it inelastic, which would mean that when the price changes, the quantity supplied does not change much. B is the market demand for automobiles, elastic or inelastic. Because the value we got is over 1, we can say that it is elastic. Maybe I've missed a reduction in the availability of automobiles because they're down 33%. As demand remains the same. Doesn't say anywhere that demand. I misread this question here because they're asking about market demand, not market supply. So I should erase that. but I don't believe it talks about demand. It doesn't have anything about demand being constant anywhere, so I don't think we can actually properly answer this question. Nonetheless, we'll move on. Maybe I'm missing something. Wouldn't be the first time. What impact do you think this will have on the revenues of U.S. automakers? The U.S. automakers will see an increase in revenue as due to reduced competition, they will have a greater market share, so sales will increase. So basically, there are less cars being imported now, and we've seen that prices have gone up. So if there are less cars coming from foreign entities and demand remains the same, as our junior tutor said, although I don't see that in the question, if demand were to remain the same and prices go up and they now have a larger share in the market, it must be that their revenues are going up. Our junior tutor also said due to limited competition, the prices will not be competitive, hence there will be an increase in the prices of automobiles. Thus, there will be an increase in revenue, both due to increased sales and increased price per unit. So basically, by the Japanese importing less cars, we move further away from perfect competition and closer to some kind of oligopoly of some sort. And as a result, prices will rise. Move on to question 4 here. Question 4, outsourcing inpatient care to India. Global healthcare has arrived in 2003. Canadian resident Terry Salo flew to India to have his hip replaced. He paid only a quarter of the cost of similar treatments in the US and shaved a year off his waiting time for free care in Canada. The very satisfied Mr. Salo played golf a month later. Mr. Salo is not alone. 60,000 foreign patients flocked to India's Apollo hospitals to obtain cheaper and quicker medical care than was available in their home countries. Apollo, founded in 1983 as a single hospital, has grown into a 37-hospital chain with 6,400 beds and marketing offices in London and Dubai. Apollo's overall private mission is to provide world-class healthcare to India, but also profit by substituting high-end medical care to Western patients at a fraction of the cost. Apollo also conducts patient billing for U.S. firms and does clinical trials for large pharmaceuticals. Another area of company expertise is medical tourism. A patient can schedule a seaside resort vacation to convalesce from their surgery as soon as they are well enough to travel. The consulting firm McKinsey & Company expects this combination of medical care and tourism in India to approach $2 billion a year by 2012. How does the concept of elasticity of demand relate to this topic? First, I have, what was that word? Covalesce? Cover one's health and strength over a period of time after an illness or operation. I certainly didn't know that. Maybe you did. Good on you if you did. Interesting. Okay. So the question here is, how does the concept of elasticity of demand relate to this topic? So if we remember correctly, elasticity of demand is the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in price. I think this applies to the states more than anything. In Canada, we have the waiting times, but in the states, a lot of people are on the hook to pay for their own healthcare, So there's probably a lot of people out there that are in need of a hip replacement but don't want to pay for it. So given the ability to slash the price by, I think, 3/4, they said. What do you say? Paid only a quarter of the cost of similar treatments in the US. So if the price was reduced by 75%, I think a lot of people that need a hip replacement would then go, their quantity demanded for hip replacement would go through the roof. I would expect it to be pretty elastic. And our junior tutor said the price elasticity demand is highly elastic in this case. Thousands of foreign patients are coming to India for quicker and cheaper medical treatment, and the demand in India is very much dependent on the cost of these treatments in their home countries. India is experiencing heavy demand only because the cost of these treatments is very high in their own countries. Obviously, if you're a US citizen and you could pay the same price for a hip replacement in India as you would in the United States, you would just go and get your hip replaced in the United States because you already live there. Where was I? Demand in India is very much dependent on the cost of these treatments in their home countries. India is experiencing heavy demand only because the cost of these treatments is very high in their own countries, or in the above case, Canada. Patients coming to India are benefiting from low cost and quality treatment. Now, a slight change in the prices or cost of these treatments at Apollo Hospital would cause a significant change in the demand for these treatments in India. These treatments in India, which are substitutes for those given in their home countries, can easily be replaced if the price in India rises, since the patients are getting almost the same medical care and good quality treatment both in India and home countries. The main reason for them coming to India is only the cost. So if the cost were to increase, there's a high chance that demand would also fall, as there is a high possibility that patients will receive treatment only in their home countries. Again, if the cost of these treatments goes down in India, there's a high possibility that patients from all over the world will come to India to get their treatment done. Moreover, the medical tourism concept will also attract patients to come to India for a resort vacation. Therefore, in the above case, the price elasticity demand is highly elastic. A little change in the price of these treatments will cause a major change in the demand for it. Also, in the above case, the demand curve will be flatter. I'm going to keep this in my back pocket if I ever need my hip replaced. Going on vacation and not having to wait for a hip replacement and not paying that much sounds like a pretty good time. So I think that was actually a really awesome write-up by our junior tutor. I don't know how to identify them, but this is me giving them their flowers. Well done. Question 5. Due to the recent downturn in economic activity, Taz has seen his hours at work reduced. He used to work 30 hours a week at $13 an hour, but he now works 22 hours. So I guess we can say his original income is going to be, what, 30 times 13, that's 339, maybe. His new income is going to be 22 times 13. I'm not even going to try to do that one in my head. $286. The first one too. 32 times 13 is 390. Close though. Solid effort. Due to this change, he noticed he purchased more box macaroni and cheese, up from 1 box a week to 4. He also reduced his purchase of Coke from 2 12-packs to 1 12-pack per week. So right away, not sure if it's actually going to be relevant to the question, but his income falls and his consumption of a good increases. That means it's an inferior good. So his income fell. Now he's purchasing more mac and cheese. So that's an inferior good. Mac and cheese is, inferior goods are typically, I like to think of it as like things I would only eat in college. So things that when your income is lower, you're going to buy more of. So like Mr. Noodles, mac and cheese, beans, things of that nature. And he reduces his purchase of Coke from 2 12-packs to 1 12-pack. So question 1. Oh, there's a lot of questions on this one. Probably not going to go through all of this just for sake of time. I've only got 25 minutes left, and I have 3 more questions. So, but what is the income elasticity of TAS? So first, we need to calculate the change in quantity. So he originally is consuming only 1 box of mac and cheese. Hard times hit. He now has to start eating 4 boxes of mac and cheese. Poor guy. So our change in quantity is going to be 4 minus 1, which is equal to 3. Do the same thing with his income. Our junior tutor denoted them M. I've already denoted them I. Same thing. So his original income is $390. And now he only makes $286. So change in income. Change in income is going to be negative $104. Yes. And then we calculate the elasticity. It's going to be change in quantity over the change in income times the original income, $390, divided by, I guess I should call this I1. Divided by the original quantity. This is a 1. So if we look up here, we got change in Q to a 3. Change in I equal to negative 104. Then I1, I1 was 390. And the original quantity was 1. So this gives us an income elasticity of negative 11.25. Boom. What type of good is macaroni and cheese for Taz? As we said, his income decreased and his consumption increased. Therefore, this is inferior. I'm not going to go through the same exercise to get the income elasticity of Coke. What type of good is Coke for Taz? We see that his income falls, and as a result, his consumption of the good falls. So therefore, for part 4, we can say that this is a normal good. So to reiterate one more time, inferior goods, if your income were to increase, you'd consume less, or if your income were to fall, you'd consume more. Normal goods, income goes up, consumption goes up, income goes down, your consumption goes down. Two. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna move on here for the sake of time. Because I don't want to run over my stream and run into the next person's. I'll give you guys a quick second to take a picture of that. Somebody's calling me, so actually give me a second to deal with this. Question 6. Discuss the common allegation that when all firms in an industry are charging the same price, this indicates the absence of competition and the presence of some form of price-setting agreement. And our junior tutor said that when all firms in the industry are charging the same price, there may be collusion in all the firms in oligopoly type of market structure. For instance, OECD group of countries charging the same price for oil exported from the countries. But in this case, every firm has an incentive to break the agreement and charge a lower price as compared to other countries in the market and earn higher profits. The OECD is technically a cartel. You can look into that a little more. It's actually, their market structure is actually pretty interesting. But carrying on, but when other countries will get to know about this agreement breaching by one country, they will also charge lower price, and all will end up charging lower price and earning lower profits. Thus, the best for the firms is to collude, and charge uniform higher prices. Yeah, basically everybody in that market structure has an incentive to cheat. It's actually really cool to run through the game theory on that and see how they arrive at that. I don't remember it off the top of my head to run through it here, but if you're interested, you should Google it. In the case of perfect competition type of market structure, all firms charge uniform price equal to its marginal cost. In other words, they are price takers. Any firm which charges a lower price will be incurring losses, as price will fall below the marginal cost, and if it raises the price, it will lose all of its customers. So all firms will charge the same price, which is equal to marginal cost. But these forms do not suggest an absence of competition. It's because the firms in this case, to earn higher profits, should be able to sell more amount of the commodity at the same price as compared to other firms or countries. This can be achieved by increasing efficiency to lower its cost of producing the output. This requires technological process, research and development, education, and training of workers, etc. Thus, to remain competitive, the firm should try to increase their efficiency to earn more profits. I think the only thing I'd really add is to quickly go over characteristics of perfect competition. So in a perfect competition, there are many buyers and sellers. Of course, if there's just one seller, it's monopoly. There's only a small number of sellers, it's duopoly or an oligopoly. There's a situation where there's only one buyer too. I can't remember what that's called. 2 is that the products are homogeneous, meaning that they're all the same. They're not offering differentiated products. 3 is that there are no barriers to entry. 4 is that all firms are price takers. That means they have no influence over the price. If they want to enter the market, they have to charge the price that everybody else is charging. Our Janine The Tutor just gave a really good explanation of that. And lastly, I like to mention that there is perfect information. How much time do I have here? Maybe I'll just quickly draw the long run equilibrium. So we're going to have quantity on the x-axis and price on the y-axis. And this is in the long run. So firms are price takers. So price is just going to be a flat line. Marginal cost first slopes down, then slopes up. And the point where it crosses is also going to be the point where average total cost crosses. And the intersection of these three is going to define our long run equilibrium. So we can call this Q star and P star. Here's a second to take a picture of that. To move on now to our second last question, I believe, question 7. Which of the following are positive economic statements and which are normative? So to know this, we need to know the difference between positive I tend to get these backwards, but I think I remember correctly. So positive economic statements are also prescriptive. Economic statements. And they describe how something ought to be. Normative, on the other hand, are descriptive economic statements. And they describe how something is or how it is. So a descriptive statement might be Canada has a low overnight interest rate right now, where a normative statement would be like, oh, Canada has a low overnight interest rate right now, where a positive statement might be Canada should, lower the interest rate further or raise it back up or something of that nature. So the actual question, which of the following are positive economic statements and which are normative? Explain. So A, higher gasoline prices cause the quantity of gasoline that consumers buy to decrease. That's descriptive. That's how it works. So price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. So you've probably seen, like, your parents will be out driving and they'll get like really excited because gas is only 90 cents a liter. So they're going to stop and get gas even though they still have a half tank. Whereas if they were out driving with a half tank and they saw that gas prices were like $1.20 a liter, they're probably going to keep driving and hope that it falls over the coming days so they can get it cheaper later. B, sorry, I said it's descriptive, sorry. Oh, do I have this backwards? Yep, fully have this backwards. So, reverse everything I just said. So, normative statements are prescriptive and define how something ought to be, whereas positive statements are descriptive and define how it is. I did give you guys fair warning. So higher gasoline prices cause the quantity of gasoline that consumers buy to decrease. So this is positive because it describes how it is. B, everyone should enjoy open access to healthcare. This is a prescriptive statement. We're talking about how it ought to be. Most of us in Canada would agree with the statement, but some of our neighbors in the States may not. So our junior tutor said that it's a normative statement because it's a claim that prescribes how the world should be, and that's correct. C, a comparison of costs and benefits should not be used to assess environmental regulations. This is, again, a prescriptive statement. So a normative statement because it's a claim that prescribes how the world should be. And D, higher taxes on alcohol result in less drinking and driving. This is a positive statement because it's descriptive and tells it how it is. So if there are higher taxes on alcohol, alcohol costs more. Quantity demanded of alcohol falls. So if there are less people drinking alcohol, there will be less people drinking and driving. Last question here. Explaining the relationship between money supply, expected inflation, and GDP growth through the quantity theory of money. So right away, that makes me want to draw the money market graph. So we've got the quantity of money on the x-axis and expected inflation on the y-axis. The demand for money slopes down, and the supply of money is straight up. And the equilibrium where they cross shows the expected inflation rate. I might not be denoting that right. i.e., that's how they do it. So if you were to decrease the money supply curve would shift to the left, and as a result, expected inflation would increase. And if you were to increase it, there reaches a point where you're going to pass the point where demand for money is equal to 0. And what that's called is the liquidity trap. That's where a lot of policies lose their effectiveness. I will leave you to look into that a little further if it interests you. But our Janine The Tutor has said that the quantity theory of money is based directly on the changes brought about by an increase in the money supply. The quantity theory of money states that the value of money is based on the amount of money in the economy. Thus, according to the quantity theory of money, when the Fed increases the money supply, value of money falls and the price level increases. The quantity theory of money refers to the proposition that changes in the quantity of money lead to, other factors remaining constant, approximately equal changes in the price level. Usually, the QTM is written as MV equals PY, where M is the supply of money, V is the velocity of the circulation of money, that is the average number of transactions that a unit of money performs within a specific interval of time, P is the price level, and Y is the final output. Quantity theory is derived from an accounting identity, according to which the total expenditures in the economy, MV, are identical to total receipts from the sale of final goods and services, PY. This identity is transformed into a behavioral relation. One's V and Y are assumed as given or known variables. Assumptions. Ooh, this is sick. Assumptions. QTM adds assumptions to the logic of the equation of exchange. In its most basic form, the theory assumes that V, the velocity of circulation, and T, the volume of transactions, are constant in the short term. These assumptions, however, have been criticized, particularly the assumption that V is constant. The arguments point out that the velocity of circulation depends on consumer and business spending impulses, which cannot be constant. So just to interject there, obviously, consumer and business spending impulses change with economic booms and busts. So, for example, right now, we're on the verge of recession. There was a lot of employment when COVID happened. As a result, consumers reeled back their spending a whole lot and began saving more. So obviously, it's not constant. It also assumes that the quantity of money, which is determined by outside forces, is the main influence of economic activity in a society. A change in money supply results in changes in price levels and or a change in the supply of goods and services. It is primarily these changes in money stock that cause a change in spending. And the velocity of circulation depends not on the amount of money available or on the current price level, but on changes in price levels. Finally, the number of transactions, T, is determined by labor, capital, natural resources, knowledge, and organization. Theory assumes an economy in equilibrium and at full employment. Mainly, the theory's assumptions imply that the value of money is determined by the amount of money available in an economy. An increase in money supply results in a decrease in the value of money because an increase in the money supply causes a rise in inflation. As inflation rises, the purchasing power or the value of money decreases. Therefore, it will cost more to buy the same quantity of goods or services. We're almost there, folks. I'm going to skip over this, but the relationship between money supply with inflation and GDP, the quantity theory of money. Quantity theory of money emphasizes that the money supply is the main determinant of nominal GDP. It's explained by referring to the equation of exchange. The equation of exchange shows the relationship between the money supply, the income velocity of money, GDP deflator, and real GDP. The income velocity of money is the number of times the money supply is used to purchase final goods and services during a year. And the equation of exchange states that the money supply times the income velocity of money is equal to the GDP deflator times real GDP. The quantity theory of money assumes that the velocity of money is constant. I don't know how much everybody is getting out of me just reading this off, but at this point, a good chunk of the way through, and they are providing excellent answers to the question. So I will continue on. If velocity is constant, its growth rate is 0, and the growth rate in the money supply will equal the inflation rate plus the growth rate in GDP. This also means that the inflation rate is equal to the growth rate of the money supply minus the growth rate of output. If the money supply grows at the same rate as output, the price level will be stable. If the money supply grows faster than output, the economy will experience inflation. Inflation is said to be a monetary phenomenon because excessive growth rates in the money supply cause inflation. If the output does not grow at a constant rate, the relationship between inflation and the money supply is not as strong. If the growth rate of output is not constant, inflation will vary even if the growth rate in the money supply is constant. Here I'm probably just going to interject and say how Canada aims to keep its inflation right around 2% every year. They want constant and stable inflation, so that consumers and businesses expect the same amount of inflation every year. When inflation gets out of control, the money supply begins rising too fast. You can experience something called hyperinflation. And when hyperinflation occurs, which I believe has happened in some countries in the Southern Hemisphere, basically your currency will lose all of its value. If the income velocity of money is not constant, the relationship between inflation and the money supply is not as strong. The growth rate and velocity is not constant, inflation will vary, even if the growth rate and the money supply is constant. Labor unions monopolize inflation. Some economists argue that inflation occurs as labor unions force wages up and firms pass the increased cost on the consumers in the form of higher prices. Many economists feel that labor unions do not make a major contribution to inflation. Many unions lack significant bargaining power, and only about 15% of the non-agricultural labor force belong to unions. Workers who cannot find jobs in the union sector turn to non-unionized sectors of the economy where wages are forced down. Some economists argue that monopolies contribute to inflation by restricting output and charging higher prices for products that would occur under competition. Increases in prices would cease once monopolists reach profit-maximizing price. Hence, increases in prices would cease. In inflation, the continuing increase in the price level will not be a problem in monopolistic settings. And our junior tutor most certainly explained the relationship between money supply, expected inflation, and GDP growth here. So I'm going to say, excellent answer. That's correct. That was my last question. Thankfully so, because I definitely need to go drink a glass of water after reading all that. Yeah, my mouth is incredibly dry. That was a mouthful. Yeah, that's all for today. This has been Kevin from OneClass. Thank you for watching. If you have your own questions you would like to ask, I believe there's a link below this video in which you can ask them. Either myself or our other senior tutor, Ose, will hopefully be able to answer them sometime this week. If you like this video, you can share it with your friends. And thank you.